80-something% of people never live further away than 20 miles from their home where they were born. And it's like, look, if you really want to have an interesting life, if you want to meet interesting people, you got to put yourself out there, because you don't even know who you are. If you've never lived outside of a small town, all you know is what is in that town, right? And I think it's one of the gifts that I've had. I've been able to travel to 84 countries, and I've been to every state in the United States. I've pretty much been everywhere you can go. And I've just seen a lot of things. I've seen the world a lot of different ways. It helped me mold my beliefs around other people, around philosophies of life and things like that. And it's really a cool way to expand your mind. But I remember the first time I did it, had a very beautiful experience. I was able to really connect on some things that were limiting beliefs that I had. My subconscious fed me some information that was causing me damage in my own life. And it basically said, look, this thing that you have that you've been dealing with, it has served you in the past. It no longer does. It's time to let it go. And I was able to do that night and purge that out and reconnect with my father in a couple of ways.
In this episode, Jimmy Rex and I discuss the importance of being open to the possibility that there is so much more to life than we think there is. Pull back, question everything, re-examine what your life is going to look like. We talk a lot about realization and perception, dive into psychedelic experiences, learning to love and understand oneself, how to create deeper connections, and more. Jimmy Rex is an individual who understands that he's here on this earth for a far greater purpose than to just exist. Originally a teacher, he left after just one semester to pursue his own path and has now traveled over 84 countries, involved himself in Operation Underground Railroad, and done a lot of really impactful things. He has a lot of eye-opening experiences that we'll dive into and uncover today, and a lot of knowledge to share. So with all that said, let's dive right into it. So Jimmy, I'll have given you a proper intro into the video, but give me the story behind kind of just the journey you've been on in life, just how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, when I was a young kid, just like anybody, I was a little hustler. I wanted to be rich when I was older. I wanted to have a life of meaning. I didn't know what that looked like or whatever. And so I was always just trying a lot of things. I would say, if you could sum it up, I was driven by curiosity, which is a very good place to be coming from, because you just end up getting your hand into a lot of things. And so at a very young age, I started selling a lot. I started looking into different business ideas in my teens. And then, I used to go buy concert tickets and I'd sell them and flip them and things like that. And just always trying to hustle and just was really intrigued with life, with the mysteries of life, with business and all those things. And so it created a lot of opportunity for me to just try things out. And then I was always trying to watch. I was watching to pay attention. What are people doing? What's working? Like, I'd go to my buddy's party, for example, in high school, and notice that all the girls after the party wanted to hang out with him. And I was like, well, shoot, I'm going to throw parties then. And, I noticed if you just go to a party, no one seems to really care. But it's just little things like that. I was always trying to pick up on, social cues and social dynamics, trying to learn from people that seem to know more than me. And I'd say the one thing that, made me stand out versus other people is I was always seeking advice and help from other people. I was willing to admit that I didn't know anything, and I wanted to know a lot more. And so that really helped me to get in a state again of curiosity, to try to learn from people that were doing really big things.
I was going through your social media, just kind of reading a little bit about you. And on your blog, I came across a post that really stuck with me. And I think there's definitely someone listening that can relate to what you said. So I want to break this down. In your exact words, you said, "In my own life, I guilted and shamed myself for years because my life didn't look like the life of those around me. I was supposed to be more quote unquote traditional and follow the path of those around me, but I didn't. For some reason, it just never felt right, and so I chose my own path. Eventually, I found mentors who helped me discover that the map we call life was much bigger than I thought. I could only see what was right in front of me, and it wasn't until they told me to step back and look that I could see how zoomed in I was." So first off, define traditional for me, and why didn't it feel right to follow that?
Yeah, man. So I grew up in a very conservative, very religious household. And, up until actually into my 30s, early 30s, I grew up in a religion that, they tell you where you're from, why you're here, where you're going. And for me, it was everything. Like, I truly believed it 100% as far as what that was. And the quote that you just read from my blog was kind of, when I wrote my book, I wrote that blog post. My book is called "You End Up Where You're Heading: The Hidden Dangers of Living a Safe Life." And what I did is I took all of the hero's journey, basically, if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And I kind of broke that down with my own life, because I had to go through this process. I had to go through each phase, each stage of the hero's journey to get to where I am today. And some of those stages are really scary. Like one of those stages is to enter the cave. And what that means is you go in there by yourself, right? Like first you cross the bridge, you're open enough to the idea of you need to change some things about your life. And then eventually comes time where you have to look at yourself. And, it's one of the things I think a lot of people are not doing today that I was grateful that I did then and do now is I just question things. I remember the first time I said, I need to be open to the possibility that there might be more to life than what I think there is. And that was the max I could get myself to go to. A lot of, religion and some of these things, they are organized so that people don't have any desire, or so that the punishment is great enough that you just don't leave. And to be honest, I was happy in some aspects with my life up till that point. I grew up again and I had a happy childhood. I had a good life. I was doing fine. I was successful as far as, the worldview. But I had this guilt and shame around myself because in my religion and my culture, you're supposed to you go on a mission, then you get home, you get married, you start a family, you do this thing. And I never really had felt authentically my path as I was doing that. And so there was a lot of people, there's just a lot of guilt and a lot of shame, a lot of sexual shame and things like that around, having strong feelings towards women. I thought I was sinning when I wanted to have sex with a girl, even though I wasn't even having sex with the girl and stuff like that. And so it wasn't until I hired this life coach through Tony Robbins' organization. Her name was Melissa. She really helped me see, a different view of some of these things. Yeah. And the way I summed that up in that quote is like, if I was looking at a map and you're like, okay, I can see the entire thing. I'm looking at my entire life was in front of me. And that was me, with my, with the religion I was in and those things. And then all of a sudden they say, hey, scoot your head back, pull your head back a little bit. And you pull your back and you realize the map's 100 times bigger than what you thought it was. There's all these other things on the map. It was like, wow, I never saw this before. And so what I try to tell people is we think we see the world exactly as it is. We think we have all the answers. But in reality, we're just zoomed in really far, usually at that point, whether it's politically or religiously or whatever it might be. And so the gift that I was given was the opportunity to pull back, to question everything, to re-examine what my life was going to look like, what my own code of morality was, what my own belief system was. I questioned all those things, and then I came up with answers that were much more mine, much more genuinely mine, and really helped me to get to a place where I can love myself. And I think that was the problem. I have so many blessings and so many good things came out of having a religious background, having that childhood. I'm very grateful in so many ways. But again, because of the shame and the guilt, some of that stuff that comes in, and to be honest, religion in general makes you, I think, feel like you're broken a little bit so that you need them to fix you. I know that's what I felt in my religion. And I'm still a big believer in God and Jesus and all that. But it wasn't until I left the religion that I kind of understood more than what that love is. It's all knowing, it's all loving. You can't screw it up. You can't earn it. God just loves us. And that pure love that he has for us, or I think we can have for others. And that is the gift that we get in this life. And so I think being able to love yourself is part of that gift when you no longer feel like this God of shame or guilt or raging or, that cares about your daily sins more than he does of how you're, and the best way I can sum it up is like when I was in that place in life, I cared a lot more about what people were doing, including my own self, as opposed to how people are doing, including my own self. And so that was a really beautiful transition that's really helped me in every aspect of my life with all my relationships to be able to connect better and deeper and more authentically with the people around me.
Do you think growing up, you kind of just, how you were saying, you're kind of fitted into this mold of just go to college, get a job, just whatever it is? It's obviously different across all different cultures, but do you think everyone or the majority of people experience the feeling of that traditional path just not feeling right? Like feeling like it's just, they're being molded into this path? Like, do you think other people feel like it just doesn't feel right, but you just still follow it because you don't know any better? Or
I don't know, like how many people, like really stop long enough to listen to their heart. I mean, it's very easy to distract ourselves with phones and sports and business and politics and family and everything that comes into our lives. I think a lot of people don't have the time or the luxury to be able to question it and be able to do the work to actually go, wait, is this, what I authentically want to be doing? And so unfortunately, I think they just do what they're doing. And they just kind of think that that's how life is. I know I had a buddy that a couple of years ago, he'd come to me, he's a lawyer, and, but he was in a miserable marriage. It was just a lot of parts of his life were unhappy. And he didn't get it. He just assumed that's what life was. He assumed that's how kind of everybody was. You're just kind of going through life. And it wasn't until, he got out of those situations. We helped him, through some other things, some meditation, some plant medicine, meeting some amazing people. He was able to transition and ended up getting in a much better place in life. And, we had a really cool moment. We went to on a vacation a couple months ago. And the last day of the vacation, he came out of his room and he was all emotional. He's all choked up. And I said, what's going on, man? And he said, in my wildest dreams, I never thought my life could be this good. And I really understood him better and understood, he just thought it was normal. A lot of people, I think, and a lot of people want to give their kids a better life than they had. But their lives were really hard. I mean, if you go back 1-2 generations, it was very hard. There was a lot of hardships that came on people. And I think this last generation, it hasn't been nearly as much hardship. But I think so a lot of parents and things today are just trying to give their kids a little bit better than they had, not realizing just how much better their life could actually be. So I don't think most people go through life feeling like this misery or whatever. I think a lot of them don't even know. And they feel fear about going for it in life, right? They say 90% of the people on their deathbed, they don't regret the things they did. They regret the things they didn't. It's not till you get to the end of your life, or it's not till it's too late a lot of times that people go back and they go, oh man, I never really went for it. I never really gave that an effort. And of course you're going to have a regret at that moment. And so again, my book is designed to help wake people up from that and help people see hey, there is a lot more you can get here. There's a lot more you could be doing or having. And you really need to wake up to the idea that going for it is not, I think the problem is too, is society has taught us, if you even just look at the way school is designed, if you try something and it's not right, you're punished. You get a worse grade. The failure isn't getting it wrong. And I think the real failure in life needs to be coming and not trying. And so unfortunately we are rewarded by getting things right. And we're, punished by getting things wrong, but that's really the wrong way to look at things. And so for me, the ultimate failure is in not trying. And so if I can get people to understand that, and if people truly, because even if you try the most crazy thing in the world and you fail at it, you're going to learn so much experience from it. You're going to have such a good, story to tell about it. You're going to feel good because you actually went for something. And even if you get left in this really bad spot, usually the reward is that much greater. And so anyway, for me, that passion for life comes from trying stuff. And so I think that the news, the society, the message that's out there is taught to teach us to fall in line. I mean, you see it right now with, people with COVID and everything else. I mean, they said shut everything down, and the entire globe, the entire world just shut down forever, for a really long time. And, then it's the next thing and the next thing that keeps coming. And people are just falling in line because they're so taught, they've been so trained to just do what they're told. And unfortunately you need, the other end of that spectrum, sometimes people like me that yo, wake up. That's not the way to go about life.
Yeah. So you have an interesting story, because I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think your realization, so you went to school, you got your master's degree at Utah Valley, so you went to school and then you became a professor for one semester after that. After that one semester, you left and you kind of just went to go create your own path. Was that your point in realization where you said where you came to this realization that there's another journey, this isn't for me? Or when did that come about? Was that?
So my path was a bit different than that. So I was well into my career. I was, had already started and failed at multiple businesses, had very successful businesses, had invested successfully. I wanted to teach at the local university for a couple of reasons. I wanted to give back was the main reason I did it. And then I wanted to keep my pulse on what the younger generation was doing, talking about. So I wanted to kind of be around that a little bit, just to learn from them. And so I did one semester, and it was kind of funny. I just realized very quickly the current university system was not set up with how I believe people should learn and grow. And so, I taught the one semester, and it was effective business presentations. It was in the business college. And when my first day, the head of the program, she basically was this 70-year-old lady that, had been doing it the same way for 40 years or whatever. And she basically said, look, here's the program. 90% of it you have to teach out of the book. 10% you can improvise on your own. It's a class on effective business presentations. Like my group of friends, the people I get to be around and hang around with, have given so many presentations and are so well versed in this stuff. So instead of reading it from a book, I had my buddy come in, for example, that owns a big $1 billion tech company in town. He's done 600 high-end interviews. So the day we had to learn about giving a job interview, instead of reading it out of the book, I had him teach about it. And then I had other people. I brought in 6 or 7 of these high-powered guest speakers. And anyway, I was supposed to be giving quizzes and tests and all this different stuff, but that's not how you learn how to be an effective speaker. So I had my own system I was using that was basically 10% of the book and 90% of my own. And the last day of class, I had to input their grades, and I hadn't even been putting it in the system. And it was funny. One of the students asked me, he's like, well, we don't know our grade if you don't put it in, as we go. And I said, well, in real life, you don't know where you stand with people either. So you should just always do your best. And that was kind of my own lesson inside the lesson on the grades. And anyway, the head of the program, again, I went in and I asked her help on how to put in grades because I didn't know. And she kind of lost it. She's like, why? How have you been doing this all semester? Have you not been putting the grades in? And I was like, well, no, I use my own system. And I kind of explained the whole, like in real life, you don't know where you stand. So in my class, you kind of just do your best. And she looked at me and she goes, well, you can't do that. And me being a little bit of a smart ass, I looked back at her and I said, well, apparently you can, because that's what I've been doing all semester. And anyway, long story short, that was my one semester in teaching university. I realized that I didn't want to do it that way, the way they wanted me to do it. And so I realized I could reach a lot more people and teach a lot more people outside of the university structure. But I did, I really enjoyed being able to teach and being able to give them a little bit more of a high-end education as opposed to reading out of a book.
So before you left, you were successful before that?
Yeah, I'd already basically had made my entire career. This was only 3 years ago or so that I did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you, in kind of when we go through the system, you go through high school and then you go to college, there's this kind of pressure to have it figured out by 20 or 21. You have all this stress. If you don't have it figured out, like you almost feel like you're behind in life. What do you say to someone that's 19 or 20 to be able to combat like something like that, to kind of just not, I don't want to say like without coasting through life, just taking whatever life throws in your way, but also not stressing about the fact that like you need to have it figured out right now, because you're never really going to have it figured out.
Yeah, so there's a couple points on that. So one of the things that I teach quite a bit is if you work really hard in your 20s, then the rest of your life, you're going to be playing from ahead. You'll be ahead financially, you'll be ahead in business and work and everything the rest of your life. But if you squander your 20s, you're playing catch up the rest of your life. So I want to emphasize that it's really important what you do in your 20s. Your 20s are going to determine how hard the rest of your life is. I truly believe that. That being said, it doesn't mean you have to figure out what you're going to do. It means you want to spend your entire 20s working hard, networking, getting those skills in place, becoming, an asset in whatever field you decide to go into, knowing full well you might switch. But so like for me, for example, when I went to college, the entire reason I went was to network. I just wanted to get to know everybody. I would throw a bunch of parties. I would get everybody involved. And the whole point of doing that was I said, if I can get to know enough people, it's going to, whatever I decide to go into, it's going to be advantageous. And so I encourage people to work hard, set up those, skills and things in their 20s, but knowing full well you're probably going to change what you end up doing. I mean, at 31 years old, I'd gone through the financial crisis. I had my business crash. I had lost homes that I, ended up losing over $150,000 on between these two houses. Like I had a lot of things happen that totally tanked me financially. Like at 31 years old, I had finally paid off all my debts and I was back to square zero. So I had no assets, but I finally didn't have any debt. And very quickly, I was able to build it back up because I had done that and worked hard to get to that point. So I knew I had the skills, I had the work ethic, I had the connections, I had the network, I had financial partners. And so because of my work in my 20s, even though financially by the time the 20s were over, it was gone. I mean, I'd lost everything and it didn't matter what you put it in. I was very quickly able to scale again. And so what I encourage people to do is don't get caught up in the what so much, as far as like knowing exactly what you're going to do or what you want to do, but make sure that you're putting into place the habits of a successful person. And I think that's the most important thing you can do is meet a lot of great people, put yourself out there, take risks, go on vacations, travel the world, start businesses, fail your ass off. I'm going to emphasize that last part, fail your ass off. Like I literally, my meat company failed. My TV show technically was a failure. We didn't make any money. You know, I had a lot of the investing I did was a complete failure. I mean, I invested in a Ponzi scheme. I invested in a dental clinic in Arizona that never even existed. I basically gave away my first $1 million. And I don't regret, I mean, I would do it differently. I wish I'd gone to mentors back then and things like that for, you know, some of that stuff. But at the end of the day, all those things shaped me and I learned all these lessons the hard way. So now the last 5 years, I've been able to help thousands of investors, literally thousands of investors, buy real estate property because I made about every mistake you can make. And so because I failed my ass off, I now am able to be that much better for everybody else. I get to kind of be the person I wish I had when I was younger. And so it's fun for me to be in this position now because it comes from experience. And I think, you know, experience obviously is the best teacher, but it wasn't because I did everything perfect. It's because I kept failing over and over that eventually I got to where I'm at today.
So coming from a small town, like how do you say, like, how does someone network? Say if they're not going to college, how does someone go about networking? Like you address the importance of networking in your 20s. How does the average person provide value to be able to network with other people?
Well, it doesn't matter where you're from. Go out, go to a bigger city. Like, why do you got to stay in a small neighborhood? You know, a small city, like get out. Yeah. Like if not permanently, at least temporarily, like go live in different places for a couple months and go see what the world is. Like 80-something% of people never live further away than 20 miles from their home where they were born. And it's like, look, if you really want to have an interesting life, if you want to meet interesting people, you got to put yourself out there. So, I mean, I wouldn't try to do it in your hometown. You got to get out.
Kind of just reinventing yourself.
Not even reinventing yourself, just getting out and just seeing the world, just seeing what's out there. And then, because you don't even know who you are. If you've never lived outside of a small town, all you know is what is in that town, right? And I think it's one of the gifts that I've had. I've been able to travel to 84 countries, and I've been to every state in the United States. I've pretty much been everywhere you can go. And I've just seen a lot of things. I've seen the world a lot of different ways. It helped me mold my beliefs around other people, around, you know, philosophies of life and things like that. And it's really a cool way to expand your mind. I think reading a lot of books helps a lot. If you can't get out of your small town, I would recommend reading about other successful people. And, you know, success leaves clues. I try to figure out, you know, what other people did to be successful and then eventually get out and see things. But those are the things you can do is meet new people, visit new places, read new books. I think that's the best way to expand your mind.
I want to jump into next. Tony Robbins said this quote, and I wrote it down because I wanted to break this apart with you. When he was addressing the importance of doing something you love, he said, what's iconic is when you interview people that make $750,000, just under $1 million a year, 80% of them say they'll never retire. When you interview people that make a little amount of money, all they talk about is wanting to retire. What do you think is the reason such a high percentage of people with wealth are, I don't know if this is a direct correlation to being passionate about what they do, but they don't want to retire. They'll continue to do what they do.
Well, I mean, if you want to, you know, continue on what Tony teaches, I'm a disciple of Tony's, and he talks about the 6 human needs that you need to be fulfilled to have a fulfilled life. The last 2 are growth and contribution. And I think the poor mindset thinks to themselves, man, once I have money, things will be okay. Once I have $1 million, I'll be rich. Once I have, you know, my house paid off, I'll feel secure. Once I have a job that pays me X amount of money, then I'll be able to relax. And unfortunately, what you discover as you go through life, that whatever level you get to, you always need to keep progressing. Otherwise, you'll feel unfulfilled and you won't be happy because you need the growth. So, you know, there's a really good book. It's the best book I've ever read. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. And in that book, he talks about don't wish your life was easier at any point. Like, don't wish your woman was easier. Like, whatever it is that you're trying to master, quote unquote, or get to an end of, it's never going to get there, because the second you do, you're going to need to improve upon that to continue to feel fulfilled. And so I think the reason why, and it's a beautiful quote that you pulled out there, is people that have a lot of money, you realize that money's like a byproduct. Like, the money just is going to be there. Money is just a way to make things happen. It's part of the game, but money is no longer the goal. I mean, there's no part of, none of my friends that have a lot of money, nobody has goals around money. We have goals around, how we want to affect the world, or how we want to make change, or businesses we want to own, or people we want to, connect with, or whose lives we can enhance, and things like that. Nobody's talking about money. If I'm being honest, if they were, it would almost look weird. And so it's usually the people that don't have money that, kind of have this love of it, I guess. And by the way, one of my greatest things I ever learned in life is whatever you want more of, give it away. So if you want more love in your life, give out love. If you want more money in your life, give away money. And the reason that's such a powerful principle, and it's the reason why I've always tried to, make sure charity is a large part of what I do with my life, is because when you give enough money away, you tell the universe, this thing, money, is not scarce to me. I'm willing to give it away because I know that it will come back to me at any time. I know I have an abundance of money. And so by giving it away, you let the universe know that there's no scarcity around it, and therefore it flows to you abundantly. And so people that are always hoarding money, they're always tight with their money, and they're, cheap people, they just attract other cheap people. They attract other people that are tight with their money. And so unfortunately, you never really get these opportunities where the doors get blown open. So I encourage everybody, Zig Ziglar talks about this. Robert Kiyosaki talks about this, but you should donate a minimum of 10% of every dollar you make to charity in one aspect or another. And when you do that, you feel the reward. You truly understand what it is to give, and you understand that money is just a thing. It's not to be hoarded. It's to be used as a tool for good.
Has that changed? I know you said obviously you wouldn't be chasing money now, but in your early career, were you ever chasing money at all? Like, when you were without money, were you chasing money, or were you chasing an impact? What were you kind of going about?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're younger, again, like when you're a kid or whatever, you want to have money, right? You want to be rich. You don't know what it looks like. You don't really know how you're going to do it. And so you're obviously obsessed with, the idea of having money or whatever. I was really generous from a young age. I threw a lot of parties in college that I was, it was always free, and I was always willing to spend money to make money, I guess you could say. I was always experiencing life. I always wanted to have money at a young age so that I could go on trips and really enjoy my 20s and 30s, not just have money when I was older. So I did that. But for sure, my mindset around money has changed as I've gotten more of it. You kind of realize that, money is not going to change you. It's just going to make you more of whatever you are. And so the chase has switched as I've gotten more, as I've learned to love myself more, as I've learned to feel that I'm enough. Like, I used to try to be very flashy and show people, hey, I'm worthy of love. Look what I've accomplished. Look what I have. Look at these beautiful women I'm around. And so I would post that stuff a lot. And I'd probably, to the outside person, look like I was, just this guy trying to like brag about his life. In reality, I was just trying to prove that I was good enough to be loved. I wanted to prove I was lovable. And so I was going about it the wrong way. But as I, changed on that and learned that, I absolutely am worthy of love as I am. I think, needing money or needing the love of like having stuff or things definitely diminishes. And you realize, like, I definitely obviously very good at keeping track of my money. I want to know where my finances are. I'm trying to build a fortune. Absolutely. All those things have not changed. In fact, the more I've gained, the more hungry I am to do good with it, and the more I want to do it because I've seen the impact that it can make. And so, but it is finding that life balance, and health is much more important to me now than money, which it wasn't when I was younger. Relationships with both my family and my friends always come first over money things now. And so you definitely change as you go. And I think it's like getting to a level where you're finally comfortable financially. Definitely helps with that. But at the end of the day, if you can learn to love yourself and love your life, no matter how much money you have. I used to live on the border of Mexico. I served my Mormon mission down there. And I'm telling you, I saw more people happy sleeping on dirt floors than I did. We were right on the border, so I got to see Americans and Mexicans that, were very different financial situations. And a lot of the people from Mexico were so much happier. They had these families and they spent time with each other. They were in each other's presence, and they had a community. Whereas in Texas, it was all about, the glamour and the glitz and wearing fancy things. And a lot of those people were miserable. And so I did learn that, thankfully on my mission, that, money's just going to make you more of what you are. So if you're happy, you'll be happier with it. If you're miserable, you'll be even more miserable when you get it.
Was that your biggest realization, would you say, through having traveled 84 countries, just seeing the different cultures, realizing the different perspectives on life, seeing that these people were sleeping on dirt floors, they're happy as can be, versus where you were living in Texas? Or
yeah, it was definitely a thing that I learned. I mean, hundreds of lessons that I learned from traveling, I think the number one lesson, if I had to pick one lesson from traveling, I would say that whatever it is we fear the most, we should lean into, because you realize you have nothing to be afraid of. Meeting a lot of these cultures in different countries like Egypt and Israel and some of these other places where I was somewhat afraid of these people before, having traveled there and experienced them and feeling their love and their energy towards me really helped me not be afraid of them anymore. And because, the news would have you believe that everybody hates America and everywhere outside America is dangerous. And both things couldn't be less true. Everybody really still loves America everywhere I've gone, and they have a respect for the freedom that we have here. That it's a way of life. And all the people that, I thought I should be afraid of, they're just as loving as my neighbor next door or whatever it might be here in Utah, And so I think for me, that was probably the most important lesson, is just, don't be afraid. If you're afraid of something, lean into it. And Brene Brown talks about that all the time. It's very difficult not to love somebody if you get enough of their story. Lean into people, try to be curious again about who they are and what they're about. And I think that's probably the best lesson I learned by traveling.
So we've talked a little bit about like perception and realization, and it kind of relates to the psychedelic experiences you were talking about on just your other podcasts and hearing you talk about them. Can you dive into that a little bit? Your experimentation, like your experiences with it. Why'd you try it? What was your experiences from it? How'd you benefit from it?
Sure. And it's a very complicated issue, right? It's a very misunderstood issue a lot of times. So it's one that deserves a lot of time and stuff. If you are curious to learn more in detail about that, you can go to my podcast, which is the Jimmy Rex Show. And I have several episodes where I talk about that. But to kind of sum it up, I mean, I've been on a journey my whole life to become the best version of myself. And so I'm always studying what other people are doing, trying to learn from other people. And one of those people that, one of the first people I ever heard talk about plant medicine or psychedelics was Tim Ferriss. And he was somebody that obviously has made himself a human guinea pig to try to figure out the best ways to hack life and make your life better. And so as I was studying him, I came across plant medicine for the first time and was kind of hearing about it. Then, I'm a big believer in Tony Robbins, like I said, and Tony talks about his experiences with plant medicine and how beautiful they were. So then I was like, okay, those are two people I have, on a high pedestal. And then Joe Rogan talking about it. He had a couple different guests on. And so I started researching it. And eventually one of my closest friends, he's one of the guys that I would go undercover with to help rescue kids that are being sex trafficked. He came to me and he said, hey, you need to do this. And this is my brother. I mean, I love this man with all my heart. He would never do anything that wasn't for me. And I was like, at first I was like, shit, like I'm going to have to do this now because he just told me that he's doing it and how it's changed his life. And so I was very nervous, as anybody should be, because, it's not to be messed around with. But I remember the first time I did it, had a very beautiful experience. I was able to really connect on some things that were limiting beliefs that I had. My subconscious fed me some information that was causing me damage in my own life. And it basically said, look, this thing that you have that you've been dealing with, it has served you in the past. It no longer does. It's time to let it go. And I was able to do that night and purge that out and reconnect with my father in a couple of ways. And so over the last 4 years now, 3-4 years, I've had the opportunity to be a part of a lot of ceremonies and circles with different plant medicines, ayahuasca, psilocybin, a couple other, type of things. And it's been beautiful, man. It's one of those things that if you're not called to do it, don't, because it's a lot of work integrating it. But if you're trying to become the best version of yourself, I would start researching and finding out more about it so that you can eventually get to a spot where you want to try it or experiment with it. And I've had 200 people I know try it in one aspect or another, and 0 that, if done the right way, if you do it in the right setting with the right mindset, walked away much better having done it and started to be able to unravel some things that, were screwing them up in their life.
What is the right mindset?
Well, the mindset is all about your intentions going in. So a lot of these, like MDMA, psilocybin, mushrooms, some of these things can be used as party drugs as well. And so that's kind of where they get a bad rap or whatever else. And so you can use it to party, or you can use it as a spiritual setting. So for example, anytime that we do a journey or a ceremony, we fast coming into it. We do a certain diet for a lot of these, sometimes even the whole week before we do it. A very clean-based, plant-based, clean diet, some things like that. And then once we get there, we make sure it's a protected space. We all put our intentions in the room. We go around the room and talk about what we hope to get out of the night. You start with meditations, and you just, you make sure the setting is correct. It's a safe setting, number one, that you're doing it with, a facilitator or a shaman that knows what they're doing. But then also that you have the right mindset, that you've gone in not to party or to try to, whatever, but you're doing it to help become the best version of yourself, is the best way I can put it. And so doing it that way is the most important thing. Otherwise you're just getting high.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think there's just, even with I don't know your opinion on weed or anything, but even just with any sort of drugs, we have this kind of mantra that they're all bad, but alcohol is just this kind of just celebratory substance. But do you ever think it'll be recreationalized?
So I think it'll be legalized, or at least non-criminalized. The problem, like you said, with alcohol and opioids are the two things that are quote unquote legal, or that you can get pretty easily. And they're the two most damaging that you can take into your body. And, they drop your frequency. Whereas, psychedelics and plant medicines up your frequency. Marijuana has a lot of medicinal purposes. If you look at Schedule 1 drugs versus Schedule 2, right? Schedule 1 means it has no medicinal value, it has no health benefits to you. And they have marijuana and psilocybin and these on there. So I'm actually part of a group. There's a company called Unlimited Sciences. It's a nonprofit that's helping to legalize these substances. It's helping to bring awareness to them. And I'm on their board. It's called The Circle. I sit on there with some really amazing people. A guy named Dale Jolly that started that. And then Rashad Evans, for example, UFC Hall of Famer, Jake Plummer, NFL quarterback for 10 years, some amazing people that are part of this group called The Circle. And our whole purpose is to bring awareness and to make sure that we're sharing the proper message about what these are and what they're not. Because again, just like marijuana, I dated a girl once that had seizures, and if she didn't take marijuana, she seizured up, and she forgot it. One time we were in California on a vacation, and middle of the night, she had this violent seizure, her whole body shaking and her teeth grinding. And I saw firsthand, if she didn't take that, that was the effect of it. And marijuana was the only thing that helped her. But when she was on marijuana, she never had those issues. And so, yeah, I'm a big believer that, a lot of these medicines, some of them get misused, but overall, done properly with the proper mindset, the proper setting, they're here from God and from the universe to help us.
It can be used for a lot of good purposes.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool, man. Yeah, that concludes everything I have for you. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today. Super stoked to be able to talk with you. And I look forward to staying in touch in the future. Thank you.
And likewise, Cody. Yeah, you did a great job, man. I wish I had started my podcast when I was your age. I started 4 years ago, but I probably would have said a lot of dumb shit. So maybe it's better I didn't, but no, man, you're doing a good thing, dude. Keep it up.
You're crushing a lot better than me right now. So we'll see.
All right, my man. Well, thank you again. And yeah, take care.
If you're still watching this and you stay till the end, thank you. Let me know down below if you found any value by hitting that like or subscribe button. If you're new here, I'll be uploading 2 videos a week, one being a podcast and the other being any sort of educational video pertaining to entrepreneurship. I'm also very curious to hear if you think the traditional path feels right for you. If it does, let me know by leaving a yes in the comment section, or if it doesn't, leave a brief explanation to why it doesn't feel right. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week.